The US Open begins on Monday or Sunday or whenever, and so I'm going to look at the top players and I'm going to rate their chances and give my predictions for the tournament. Let's go! So the first thing to mention is the amount of injured players lot this year. As well as Nishikori out, Raonic out, we also have the two top players of last year at the US Open, reigning champion Stan Wawrinka and runner-up Novak Djokovic. Basically, this means a massive drop in the rankings for them, which, admittedly, they're both out for the rest of the year, which means they'll both pretty much be outside the top 10. That happened to Federer last year. He ended up outside at number 17 last year, but he's somehow come back and could be world number 1 end of this tournament. But part of me thinks Djokovic and Wawrinka aren't going to benefit from it the same way. Anyway, so on for players that are playing. Right, where better to begin then than the current world number 1, Rafael Nadal. He made it back to world number 1 this week because of Murray failing to play Cincinnati, so he lost his 600 points as runner-up from that. So Nadal, though, despite getting back to number 1 in the world, hasn't had the greatest American summer season. In the Rogers Cup, he went out round of 16, I believe, and in Cincinnati it was the quarterfinals. So, and that quarterfinal match was pretty convincing by Nick Kyrgios. However, Nadal does rise to the big occasions in Grand Slams quite often. He's won the US Open twice before, in 2010 and 2013, beating Djokovic in both finals. And he also won the French Open this year and made it to the final in Australia. But it seems in a lot of the finals he's been in this year, the ones he's lost, most of them have been to Roger Federer. So maybe that's going to have an impact. But Nadal, I can see going deep into the tournament, and he's definitely contending for the title. Now onto the world number 2 and British hope, Andy Murray. He ended last year as the world's number 1, but then has been dubbed by some as... What was that? He's been dubbed by some as one of the worst world number 1s ever, as this year he's not played like the world number 1 and has really struggled. In the summer, however, that's only got worse, as at Wimbledon he was obviously limping and ended up limping off in a quarter-final match against Sam Querrey, which he lost in 5 sets. He then didn't play the Rogers Cup or Cincinnati, thus forfeiting his world number 1 ranking to Rafa. I still don't think he's really got a shot this year at US Open. I believe he's going to... Because he's been advised by many, don't follow Federer for Wawrinka and Djokovic's example by skipping the rest of the season, as many think that's not going to help him at all. And I don't think it will help him, but I think he's going to try and play US Open and crash out quite early in like one of the first 2 rounds, because he's not played and he's injured, so I don't see him doing well at all this year. I think what's going to happen is the first 2 rounds or so he is going to be out, and then he's going to call it on the season. So yeah. Onto the players who are more likely to win then. Arguably the favourite, and for very good reasons. Roger Federer seemed long gone last year, where he hobbled off after a 5-set loss to Milos Raonic at the Wimbledon semi-finals, and many thought that that was it for him. He skipped the rest of the season and dropped to world number 17, which is his lowest ranking since 2002, I believe, or even 2001. And it seemed like it was all over for him. But then at the Australian Open, he came back and he was dominating the tennis world. He won the Australian Open, returned to the top 10, before winning in Indian Wells and Miami. and then he skipped ages and came back and won Wimbledon. And that's incredible. He was runner-up in the Rogers Cup as well. And however, he got injured after that, so he skipped Cincinnati. But he says he's feeling fresh. And he says he doesn't think he's going to win. But that was what he said before Australia, and that was incredible. So I believe he has a very good chance. And if he wins, he could be world number 1. As could Murray, but that seems a little less likely. And Rafael Nadal's just got to try and keep defending his world number 1 title. But Federer, he's won the US Open 5 times between 2004 and 2008. So that's 9 years ago he last won it. Since then he's only made the final once in 2009, where he was close to winning but then lost to Del Potro in 5 sets. Since then, the best he's managed to get to is semi-finals in 2010, 11, 14. Oh, and he was runner-up in 2015. However, if he does well in this tournament, I think he's going to be year-end number 1, because you've got no more points to defend this year. And so he's a free player, basically. So Roger Federer, look out for him. So those are the big veterans done. Now we're going to look at the next generation of players who could take victory. I wouldn't have put Grigor Dimitrov on this list if it hadn't been for his recent form. This year he's done well. He reached the semi-finals in Australia and returned to the top 10. He's brilliant. He's always been in Federer's shadow, being dubbed Baby Fed. And that's sort of right, because he's basically Roger Federer, but not quite as good. However, in Cincinnati, the top players were dropping like flies, but he played as if he was Roger Federer. He was basically, no one could touch him in Cincinnati, which is obviously why he came out champion. And so I think if he can keep this up, then obviously it's going to be harder, because we've got Rafa playing well, Murray's in it, Federer's in it. But if Dimitrov really digs into it and plays how he did in Cincinnati, I wouldn't be completely surprised if he didn't, if not win, get incredibly deep and could get to his first Grand Slam final. It would be nice if he could do that, as he's always been in the shadow of the big guys, and he's been talked about since 2011 he's the next big thing, and he's never really shown that. Like, he's had glimpses of it, but he's not shown it yet, and I think this could be the perfect opportunity, especially as it would pretty much guarantee him qualification for the Tour finals this year, and it'd be nice for him to manage to do that. So Dimitrov, look out for him. I think he's going to go deep. Many would argue that this man isn't just one of the favourites, but is the favourite. And I could have said that too a few weeks ago. This is Alexander Zverev, who is basically the leader of the next generation of players, because he's under 21, he's like 19, and he's already won 2 Masters 1000 titles this year, in Rome, where he beat Djokovic in the final, and in the Rogers Cup, where he beat Federer in the final. And so he won 2 tournaments in a row in Washington and Rogers Cup. So don't be surprised. However, he lost his first match in Cincinnati pretty convincingly, and so it seems to me that he may not have it in him to go all the way in a best of 5 set situation. I think that was proven in Australia, where he faced Rafael Nadal in the 4th round, and he was up 2 sets to 1, but then Nadal won in 5. It's just, as he's younger, he doesn't have the experience in Grand Slam finals, well, Grand Slams, as much, and the best of 5 set format, and I believe that's going to get to him, as well as other people such as Dominic Thiem. So I'd expect him to go deep. I wouldn't quite put him a contender for the title just yet, but a semi-final or final run wouldn't surprise me. Right then, time for my final prediction. It's going to be hard to pick a player, but if I had to pick one, I'd pick Federer, followed closely by Dimitrov, then Nadal, then Zverev. Because I'm going to put Roger simply because he played well in the Rogers Cup. He seems fit enough because that's why he took Cincinnati off, so he'd be ready for the US Open. And he's got the experience in the best of 5-set format, and also the crowd will be rooting for him. However, should that not happen, I can see it being Dimitrov or Zverev, as I think Rafa, despite the world number one ranking, might propel him and saying for him to say, "Look, I'm world number one. I'm going to win this because that's what I'm meant to do." But I feel that his performance in the summer season won't really get him to the championship. But I said that before Australia. Everyone said that before in Australia, and look how he and Roger did. So I'm going to pick Federer, but you never know. I'm going to say he in the final. I've no idea. The draw's not been released, I don't think yet. But I think if he and Rafa would face in a final, that would be quite interesting. I think Dimitrov and Zverev are the ones to watch out for who could cause the big upsets over Roger and Rafa. As for Andy Murray, I don't see him getting deep into this tournament. I think that this will be the end of his season, and rightly so, because I think they need to learn that sometimes you need to stop, because he'd probably want to defend all the titles he got at the end of the year. And unless he does well in the US Open, if he goes out before the round of 16 or even the quarterfinals, he needs to reconsider the rest of the season, because he'd rather do well next season than play this season and struggle his way through it, as I think that's what Roger and Rafa realised last year. So that's my prediction. But what do you think? So tell me in the comments below who you think is going to win and any surprising outcomes. Also, maybe if you follow the women's game, or doubles, or mixed doubles, or whatever, just tell me everyone you think is going to win in the comments below, and I'll read it and maybe respond to you with what I think. Anyway, see you next time.